All right, folks, this is Rebel Rousing Rich Bergeron.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Tornado, and God, I was wrong last week, Tony Pennicow.
Yeah, I actually watched a little bit of that fight, and Lomachenko Lopez didn't look like it was going to be that crazy on paper, but it was. I was kind of disappointed, more than anything, the lack of aggression on Lomachenko's part. I mean, he had the footwork and he had a little bit of the defense, but he just didn't have that aggressive nature to the end when he knew he had to knock him out.
Right.
And even that was ugly. Ended up being a headbutt that gave him the worst damage. So I never seen him fight uglier in my life. It was ridiculous.
Watching the fight, a couple things came to mind for me. The first thing is what they said in the first round or two, where Lomachenko likes to take a round or two to process what he's seeing. And then he usually gives away the first or second round, and then he, goes on the offense. And usually when he does, usually with pretty devastating results. I gotta close this. There we go. So it looked like the first two rounds he was processing, he was doing his work, and I'm like, okay, and I'm expecting at any minute, for him to start doing that matrix, that moving side to side, angles, a lead left hand hook, pivot over. And for the first 6 rounds, I didn't see it at all. So now watching the fight, after 6 rounds, it was debatable on whether it was 5-1 Lopez or 6-0 Lopez. The second round was kind of a tweener, could have went either way. So I'm like, okay, so he's either up 5-1 or 6-0 right now, which is really going to put Lomachenko in a precarious position. Then, starting in the 7th round, Lomachenko started landing a couple good shots, really raked him with a few good left hands, a couple good right hooks. I'm like, okay, so now going into the 11th round, I had given Lomachenko 5 straight rounds. So now it's either 6-5 Lomachenko or 6-5 Lopez, depending on how you gave the second round. Then in the 12th round was also a tweener round. So now you had Lomachenko very effective early in the round, but then you had Lopez land some very good punches late. Yeah. Once again, depends on the judging. Personally, I had it 6-6. I had a 6-round sweep for the first 6 rounds Lopez, a 6-round sweep for the last 6 rounds Lomachenko. I had it 114, a draw. I said, argument, you could have it 115, 113, either way, or a draw, depending on how you took the 2nd and 12th round. I thought the other 10 rounds were pretty clear. I thought they were pretty easy to judge. I think Andre Ward had it a draw, 114, where he may have given the second round to Lomachenko and the 12th round to Lopez, where I flip-flopped. So now the judges come out, and the first judge is like 116, 112. So when I heard that wide of a score, I was expecting him to announce a name as to say it's either going to be a split or majority decision. So there's 116, 112. But I'm expecting them to give it to say, for Lopez, Judge so-and-so has it 119, 109, and I'm going to think, for the other guy. When it became unanimous, that threw me off. When the scores were so absurdly wide, 116, 112, I thought was wide in my eyes, personally. Looking at it, I'm like, if you gave the 5 clear rounds to Lopez and the 2 tweener rounds, it's 115, 113. I could not find another of those 5 rounds to give to Lopez to make it 116, 112. The fact Julie Letterman had it 119, 109, 11 rounds to 1 is an absolute disgrace and an embarrassment.
Yeah.
I was actually shocked when I heard that. Honestly, words. I don't know what to say on that. What Lopez did that impressed me in the fight was he was more versatile than we're used to. We're used to seeing Lopez as a banger, a big right hand puncher that really carries thunder in his fist, and is known for really taking guys out of there in pretty brutal fashion. The fact that he fought a controlled pace and used his jab and his movement was extremely impressive, and I don't think Lomachenko was expecting that. So I think he's, waiting for the guy to come in where he can counter off of his aggressiveness, and he was not doing that.
It almost had the feel that Lomachenko was told or prepared for this fight by believing he would have to go the first 3 or 4 rounds letting Lopez slug himself out. Like that was the strategy. Because it seemed like he wasn't really even planning to fight much the first few rounds. And then, it got into the deep part of the fight.
That's usually his end.
And how he came out. But the thing that really blew me away going into that fight was I think he was also a little bit intimidated. I mean, I was intimidated looking at the size of that guy's arms. Lopez was ripped in the arms, especially the shoulders and the biceps. And what that allowed him to do, more than any other fighter I've ever seen, period, is he didn't have to change levels to do those body shots that were just, tenderizing the ribs of Lomachenko.
Right.
And it's something that I don't know is a natural thing or if it's, new for this fight or something he's always been doing, but I never seen anybody do it that well. And not look like a sloppy fighter that just never learned. You're supposed to bend your knees and go down. Like, he didn't change levels at all. He just kept leaning over and wailing him with those hooking body shots. The only thing I could knock is that, you look at his face afterwards and you can tell exactly what he did wrong, and it's that total, the thing I'm always talking about, unless you're Floyd Mayweather, you should avoid the up jab with the hand low. And maybe that's his style. Maybe it works for him. He won the fight. Can't say, don't do it. But you have to also be able to block your face. Somebody's going to figure out that's your weak point and give you a little bit worse than a black eye next time. But he was doing a little bit weird stuff with his defense. He was doing a lot of the George Foreman cross-arm defense for the body shots, which worked. But you got to have one hand up by your chin, and the best hand for it is your front hand. You can't really block a lot of that stuff with your back right hand in that stance, So I would advise him, if anything, to just friggin' fix that one thing, and he could beat anybody. Because that was a hell of a performance, I think. And all you could say is that, and he got a little bit slack in the end.
I can almost take a comparison to, obviously, different, generation, different circumstances, and definitely role reversal with the boxer and the puncher. But in a way, Marvin Hagler and Ray Leonard. If you go back to that fight, and in fact, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this gentleman later because we were communicating with him yesterday, the Iceman himself, John Scully. John, he'll come out and he is one of the social media's most entertaining guys. And I love, talking to him and joking and, laughing. So he was quoting Rocky 2. If you go back and watch Rocky 2, the one thing Mickey says is, for a 45-minute fight, you got to train 45,000 minutes. That's 10 hours a week, 10 hours a day for 10 weeks. And Scully's like, nobody trains that much. And then my joke was, the other thing was, we're going to take you from being a southpaw, which confused Apollo in the first fight and gave him a shit ton of trouble, and we're going to make you an orthodox fighter because that'll confuse him. Apollo's been fighting orthodox fighters his whole career, so taking a guy that's not a natural right-handed fighter and making him fight right-handed is not going to confuse Apollo at all. So we would joke about that. But it makes me think, and I mentioned this, the Marvin Hagler-Ray Leonard fight, where Hagler, who was right-handed, but he fought southpaw his whole career, would switch up occasionally, but he came out for the first few rounds in a right-handed stance. Well, that's not going to confuse Leonard. and that's going to actually make it easier. And Hagler gave away the first 4 rounds of a 12-round fight. Now, all Ray Leonard has to do is win 3 out of 7 rounds to win that fight. Whether he should have got the decision or not, winning 3 out of 7 is much easier than winning 7 out of 12, right?
Yes,
or,
it is.
I'd say, winning 3 out of 7 is much easier than winning 6 out of 7 or 7 out of 7.
Yep. Wow.
Oh, excuse me. I was wrong. 7 out of 8. So, Ray Leonard had to win 3 out of 8, and Marvin had to win 7 out of 8 after he gave away the first 4. My math is off tonight.
Uh-oh. The boxing Rain Man has poor math skills. What's wrong with this picture?
Yeah.
That's what we got to talking to John about lately, was in the comments section there. He has also been coined the Rain Man of boxing. Like it's not our original nickname.
Yeah, you saw somebody else said that, right?
Yeah. So, that was funny. Anyway, we'll have to get him on again one of these weeks. I do have actually a guest for next week. It kind of sucks that Tom's not on the show tonight, so I could tell him. But it's a guy with another podcast, and it's basically all about Strikeforce. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, but Phil Lanides, or Lanides, well, probably one way or the other. He is a host of this podcast where basically he looks back at the Strikeforce League, which was, if you remember at all, I know you don't follow MMA as closely as me and Tom do, but UFC decided at one point to get rid of Strikeforce, but they pretended like they were going to run it as it always has been run when they bought it out. They said, oh yeah, we're going to do business as usual. And I think I even had a contest on the website. How many times does Dana White say business as usual in this interview where it's announced? And somebody guessed 10, and it was right. So I sent them a t-shirt or something. So anyway, the whole point is, Strikeforce was basically the second runaround of what they did to Pride, except they couldn't do to Strikeforce what they did to Pride because that was like a killing. That was like a murder, and they kind of got exposed for that a little bit. The press, mostly a site called Fight Opinion, which referenced my case a lot, but a lot of other press gave them a lot of crap, and there was a lot of bitter people still about that because Pride was so different. Pride was just intense, no rules, or very limited rules. There were soccer kicks, and it's just so many crazy things. And you don't even see reruns on TV of Pride or anything. Maybe on UFC Fight Pass, but it was just so much good content lost when the UFC took over and killed it. And opportunity for a lot of these fighters, because a lot of the contracts just got wiped out. Fighters just walked off and didn't want to compete, and there was a lot of controversy with the Yakuza, and so anyway, this guy probably won't talk too much about the politics, but the pure genius of the actual organization, the people involved, they had a good thing going. They were enough of a threat that the UFC felt they needed to buy them out. And it was also one of the first times the UFC took something over and didn't throw out the guy running it. Scott Coker was able to run it for them for a long time, which kind of enabled him to be in the best position to run Bellator now. So, a lot of things come through Strikeforce. It was one of those things. I remember the very first card they had, and it was like Renzo Gracie versus our former guest, Frank Shamrock. We had on the show once, I think, years back. We had Ken on more than Frank, but Frank we had talked to once, and geez, I wish I could have asked him more questions related to the Fertitas.
I was on the show with Frank. I was on the show with Frank. I thought, if I remember correctly, Ken was a little bit more receptive.
Yeah.
And I was more interested in talking about the WWE career.
Yeah, well, I think it was like at the time that we got Frank, He was doing a favor for his media person, who I had always taken care of with stuff and publishing stuff, and she had provided me a few interviews, and she was like, oh, I got to do this, and for my girlfriend, basically. He was dating her or something. It was a crazy story, anyway. So, we ended up getting him on the phone, but he really wasn't that crazy into the interview, I don't think. It was one of those, kind of, a little bit better than Kung Lee, but not as bad as, what's his name? Wes something.
Oh,
Wes Sims, yeah.
And that's 12 years ago, and I still say it was the worst show I've ever been part of.
Yeah. Well, no, there was the other guy. Crazy Horse, Charles Bennett. That was even where he kept hanging up on us, the bastard.
Oh my god, yeah, I remember that. Was he the one that he was going to have to get high or something?
Yeah. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll have Phil on next week. I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about. I think, actually, now that I think about it, Crazy Horse probably actually competed in Strike Force, too. Small world. It all comes full circle. But anyway, I came close to winning the big one last week on the FanDuel. We talked about that last week on the show. Now, I had a pretty decent lineup except for one guy, and it sounded like a pretty decent prospect. I mean, he only had, I think, 2 losses. Come over from the Philippines. He's trying to represent his whole country. He got his last fight in the UFC canceled, which was supposed to be his debut because of COVID. He recovered, and now he's going back in there to beat some ass. And nope. He got knocked out in the first round and scored 1.8 points for me. Everybody else won their fights. Okay? Even the James Krause. I put faith in him because we had him on our show. It was one of those, well, I know the guy, so I'm going to root for him. And he didn't do all that well. I mean, he kind of puttered through the fight, did just enough to win, and he got a lot of points. But the main event was really one that took it over the top. Because anytime you have a decision and your fighter wins in the main event, if you pick that winner, or even if you pick the loser, they're going to score a shitload of points. So I knew that as 9 times out of 10, you're going to have to pick a main event fighter for your MVP. And somehow only 5% of the people in this particular contest knew to do that. And knew to pick the right guy, because I knew Ortega was going to win this fight. I mean, Tom was giving way more credit to the stun gun there. Or not the stun gun, the Korean zombie, they call him. And I'll tell you, he had a chin. I guess that's where he earned his nickname. He got a chin. Definitely has a chin. But my boy there, Brian Ortega, with his only 1 loss to Max Holloway, proved that was just a bad night. And just did everything right. He landed a spinning back elbow at one point that I don't even know how this Korean zombie didn't go to La La Land. He actually said he didn't remember a few of the last rounds. I think the 3rd, 4th, and 5th he has no memory of. But he was joking around, and he fake slapped him at the end of the fight, so he's, pretty giddy to survive that one, I think. In the moment. But yeah, you talk about zombie fighting, and it reminds me actually of Junior Dos Santos saying stuff like that. I forgot rounds. So it's not very good, for the concussion protocol stuff and all that, Doesn't bode well for the future for these guys. I don't know if we're going to have a UFC concussion lawsuit, but cannot be good when you're forgetting rounds. And then they're fighting every week, so obviously these guys are going to try to have a quick enough turnaround to keep making money. But anyway, that's another argument. It was a good card overall. We got the big one this week with Nurmagomedov and Justin Gaethje. Talk about later. But another one that got me some big points for cheap money last week was Juliana Pena. I bet on her, and that was a good one. This week I'm going for the guy we've also had on the show. Why am I drawing a blank now? Oh, Smiling Sam Alvey. Remember him? He was too positive.
I remember hearing the name.
Smiling Sam Alvey. He has been like a UFC journeyman, basically. He came from a Canadian organization. And we had him and his opponent on one show. And they had like the trash talk before we made the transition from one guy to the other. Because we had him on the same show. At different times. And so he was just like funny trying to trash talk because he's so nice. Anyway. I got him. He's only $8. He is the lowest costing fighter, meaning he's expected to do the worst. But I know that Smiling Sam, even if he loses, is probably going to go the full distance. Because the only time I ever seen him not go the full distance and put in a decent fight, even in a losing effort, was when he fucked up his ankle in like the first 30 seconds. And you could tell it was on a kick, and he just wasn't the same after that. But he lasted the whole fight, so even if he loses, I heavy loaded my card with all the winning people I think are going to win, so it was good. Anyway, it was Jessica Andrade, not Juliana Pena, sorry. She beat Caitlin Chukagian by a knockout from a punch to the body. And she was just determined. She's like a little Vinnie Paz, a female Vinnie Paz in the MMA cage.
Nice.
She's nuts. So I was all the way on her. I knew she was going to win. This one I didn't have on my card, but Jimmy Crute beat Modestas Bukauskas by knockout. That was 2 minutes into the first. Jonathan Martinez beat Thomas Almeida. He was the one that I was talking about that had all the street fighting experience. So once I read that, I went to him, and he delivered on the decision. I thought he was going to knock him out at one point, but, didn't cost me anything. I still ended up getting 103rd place. And the other one, the one that really ruined me, was Mark Striegel. Now, granted, I should have known. He's going up against another Nurmagomedov. Just like Khabib. I don't know if he's related to this guy, but yeah, it was a quick one. 51 seconds into the first, Mark Striegel got knocked the F out. And they got this big, huge article on him on the UFC site and everything about how he had this huge adventure in his first fight going into the UFC. And, I was just like, wow, they are really upselling this guy. I was thinking the other day, I was like, oh man, if I ever meet this guy, if I ever really turn Fight News Unlimited into something where I'm going to UFC events and covering them all the time, and I actually meet him, and I'd be like, you cost me $10,000 in your first UFC fight. All you had to do was win. Anyway, I'll get him. It's a lot easier than the NFL. The NFL ones are very tough to predict, especially the damn the game Sunday night. I don't know how you could have predicted. No, Monday night, the second game. Yeah, Cowboys and was it
I'm
Rams?
glad I picked that. There's like certain games that are like boggling me this week. My one friend, she was the only person that had Denver over New England, which I think was just a complete stroke of luck, which was nice because that game knocked out 15 people on my last man standing pool.
Oh, wow. What's even nicer is it fucked up the Fertitas with station casinos. One guy won like a $2 million parlay because of that. So, just more on their plate to worry about. Somebody's collecting for once. But yeah, the NFL has been pretty wild. I mean, for one, with the COVID stuff happening all the time every week, screwing up the schedule. And then, two, with just the unpredictability of it. Dak Prescott, boy, breaking his ankle there. That was vicious. I watched that.
Yeah,
Watched that live.
When that happened, you knew that was bad. You knew that was bad.
Yeah. Ankle sideways. So, actually, Andy Dalton confused the shit out of me because I thought he was going to come into this week fresh off that nice, finishing performance last week. And nope, no, he could not get any rhythm together with any of those guys.
I hate rooting for them.
And he was laughing. He was laughing about how he was fucking up every other freaking series and couldn't get the third down converted. And he's just sitting there laughing and smiling about it, because the other team wasn't scoring. But at some point, you have to just be like, what the hell? I know this is a game, but it's not all about fun and smiling. You got to go put your head down and do some work.
I'm anti-Dallas. Well, the week before they were playing the Giants, when Prescott got hurt, I had Dallas as my last man standing pick. So I'm like, shit. They're great. It's great when they lose, but I kind of need them to win because I got this chance at like $3,500 here that I kind of want at least a piece of. And I'm watching this, and then I'm like, oh my God, they're losing, and then Dalton drives them down, gets the field goal, drives them down, gets the win. I'm like, thank God. But the way they played so poorly on Monday night, then I was back to laughing again. But now they're ripping their coaches, and they're saying that their coaches are inept. So, it couldn't happen on nicer.
Your coach doesn't drop 2 fumbles.
Yeah,
that's not a coaching decision. Matter, and the interception too on top of that. So, it's just ridiculous. Almost all their points came off of turnovers. It's usually always the story anyway, but yeah, that was just poor performance, period. Anyway, getting back to the combat sports, we got a bunch of stories to talk about. We got the rest of that Loma Lopez card. Loma. He's calling himself Loma so much, he's got me calling him that. Anyway, we got UFC 254 to talk about. Got the winning formula for that, hopefully. But yeah, last Saturday, we'll get to that first, then we'll get into some of the news stories here. I got like 7 or 8 of them. We had Lomachenko and Lopez. What else we had last week? Had the female fight over in Bayern, Germany, with the 3 female fights on the top of the card. Emma Kozin, the middleweight, beating Chris Namos. Emma improves to 20-0-1, and Namath falls to 25-6. That was for 3 female middleweight titles. And then we had, I guess it's sort of an upset here, Jessica Shadko came in at 8-0 against Caitlin Phelan, who was 3-0, and Caitlin won. For all 3 vacant titles, the WBC Youth Female Welterweight title, the WF World Female Welterweight title, and the WIBA World Welterweight title. And then we had Feta Dubuz, who was 4-0 going in. Took her first loss to Jan Marsalik, who was 7-2 going in for the WBF International Super Lightweight title. That was about it for good ones on that card. Oh, geez, somehow we missed this one last week. Guy got his 100th win in Lithuania last Saturday. Arslan Katayev. No, not his 100th. His 94th win, I should say. I thought that was a 9. It's a 93. 93-33-1 he was going into this fight against Mark Andrejev, who was only 1-0 in his fight career. So he got his 94th win. It's a heck of a record. I wonder, they're probably going to be against a whole bunch of bums on his click on his record. Still, that's a lot of fights. Well, here's an upset of the week for real. Zolasani Ndongeni. I don't know if we mentioned this as our mismatch of the week or not last week. I think we had 2 of them, but this one turned out for real. We had upset of the week. Zolasani Ndongeni came in at 26-1. fought the Prince. Yeah, we did mention this one because I remember talking about the Prince. Prince de Lomo, right? 11-10-1 is his record. Well, he won the fight. Prince wins. That's wild. Any other weird fights, upsets? No? Should have bet on it. Alright, and the UK, we had a decent one. We had Lewis Ritson at super lightweight, improving to 21-1 over Miguel Vasquez, falls to 42-10 for the vacant WBA Intercontinental super lightweight title, which now belongs to Lewis. And then we had a draw. Thomas Patrick Ward doesn't get his 29th win. He gets his first. No, doesn't get his 30th win. He gets his first draw. Going against Thomas Esamba, 10-6. Close to 10-6-1. Wow, I don't know if you call that falling. Alright. Here's the big one. Alright, so Vasyl Lomachenko over... Nope, Teofimo Lopez over Vasyl Lomachenko. We talked about that one. We also had Arnold Barboza Jr. staying undefeated and getting the vacant WBO International Super Lightweight title with a win over Alex Saucedo. Falls to 30-2. Did you get to watch that one, Tony?
Very good fight. I was impressed by Barboza. He boxed. Yeah, I did. I watched the whole card, and Barboza boxed very well. I was impressed. So they made it an interesting, contest. But Barboza just was, clearly the better fighter.
All right. And we also had Kendo Castaneda falling to 17-3. Josu Vargas winning the fight. 18-1 will be his new record. And then a light heavyweight battle, Edgar Berlanga coming out over Lonel Bellows. Berlanga also stays undefeated. He's now 15-0. Bellows is now 20
he kept the streak
wins,
going.
6 losses, and 3 draws. Was it a first round knockout streak or something? What was his streak?
I think it was 14 straight first round knockouts, and I think this made it 15.
Oh. He's going for, actually, Bronco Billy Wright. Remember we had him on the show? He was
I remember that name.
claiming he had the record of first round knockouts, and it turned out to be Shannon Briggs. Shannon Briggs and Sean O'Grady is up there too, believe it or not. For most...
I know there was a...
Period. First round knockouts.
There was a guy from Philadelphia that actually started his career off with 19 straight first round knockouts.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
So...
I remember
It was Tyrone Brunson, and he was, fighter, very good puncher. But what ended up happening was, figured they had to drown him into getting in the deep waters. And I saw Bellows the other night. You could see that was his game plan. He had never been stopped before, so you figured he's a pretty durable guy. Maybe this is the guy that's going to, extend Berlanga into the second, third, fourth, and fifth round. You could see during the instructions that Bellows was like, I don't know what the hell I just got myself into, because he had that oh shit look on his face. And Berlanga's jabs were hurting him. Like, I would see Berlanga land a jab, and it was like bugging Bellows back, and I'm like, if it doesn't end in the first round, it's not going to touch into the second. And I think, if you go back and you watch that fight, I think the referee was a little premature with the stoppage, but the referee, told Bellows, I think the fight went, 5. He was telling him for the last 30 seconds of the fight, you better show me something or I'm going to stop it. Usually that's what you tell a guy after 4 or 5 rounds where he's really taking, one-sided punishment, and the referee will, come to the back corner. Hey, listen, you better show me something this round or I'm going to stop the fight. He was saying that after a minute.
Mm-hmm.
He would land and Bellows would stagger back a little bit. You better show me something. I'm like, the referee was just waiting. And sometimes and we're all human, and you get such a devastating puncher that's knocking guys out. You know, first of all, you're the referee where it's like, if this fight goes to the second round and it's like, oh, you were the one that caused the streak to stop, which is bullshit. But people say it, and then also you're human, so it's like you read all the sensationalism, you hear everything, so it's like, oh my god, devastating puncher. If I don't stop this fight, this other guy can get hurt. And so like, as soon as he lands, like the referee's already ready to stop the fight. It's like, I'm surprised the referee didn't stop the fight when they touch gloves.
Cut it out. He's hurt.
He touched that glove too. I could tell as soon as they touched the glove, he was hurt. I had to stop.
Yeah, right. All right, we're going to get into some news stories here. First one, MMA related, is we have Anderson Silva now saying that the Uriah Hall fight is going to be his last, period, in the UFC. Well, last in the UFC, I don't think that means the last period. Might end up doing an exhibition or something, fighting Mike Tyson, who knows. So that's interesting. I know he has more fights on his contract if he wants them, but he's confirming this is going to be his last one. He says, I think I'll miss the training the most, preparing my mind, preparing my body. This, I think, is most important, and I feel sad because I don't have this anymore. This is the last one. That said, he's happy with his matchup against Hall. Hall was kind of most known for being a Ultimate Fighter contestant who scored one of the scariest knockouts in the show's history with sort of not unlike the guy Buckley who had his foot caught and ended up doing the spinning back kick to the guy's chin. Sort of like that, but he never had his foot caught. It was just a total spinning back kick that nailed the guy and just dropped him, knocked him straight out cold. It actually scared Dana White. So he was the scariest knockout he'd ever seen on the show. So that's Uriah Hall's claim to fame, and obviously one of his idols was Anderson Silva, so he probably wanted this fight and is honored to have the opportunity to be Anderson's last, but he hopes probably that it doesn't mean he's going to be Anderson's last knockout victim. We'll see what Anderson brings to the table, but his last one against Adesanya didn't look too dynamic. Looked like he lost a few steps. But it's one of those sports where we don't have enough history to know, what it does long term to fighters. So, anytime a fighter quits when they notice that step or two down that they've taken, it's a good thing, I think. It's better err on the side of caution in that case. You don't want to just take out the rest of your fights just because you can and make the money just to watch your brain capacity disappear in your old age, So.
And with a lot of your comments most now, it's like, when you read things about, guys like later in their life, and one that obviously is getting more and more notoriety now is the world of professional wrestling, because of a lot of the guys dying at such a young age, and the depression, the drug overdoses, the Chris Benoit situation from 2007. But you understand more because back in the day, really with any sport, was a bad one. Where like these guys didn't really look into this, chronic, traumatic CTE, and then you're seeing like guys that were like, a perfect example. This is Chris Benoit, who was 40 maybe when he murdered his wife's son and then killed himself. They said he was like basically of an 85-year-old dementia patient.
Yeah.
With really limited capacity. There was another guy, Andrew Test Martin, who died at he was like 33, and they said he was like the brain capacity of an Alzheimer's patient. When he died of a drug overdose. So it's like a lot of stuff. So it's like you see these guys, and I'll give you an example. Last year I go out to And, you're going around different lines trying to meet different guys. And I didn't have a whole lot of time. I would have liked to have stayed about an hour or two longer, but I had to get back to the arena because I was meeting my dad. And, Vinny Paz, charismatic as could be, he was the Vinny Paz we know. Tony P, what's up? Where's your dad? Joking around. Roy Jones, sharp as a tack. Talked to Roy, and we talked for about a minute. Showed him a photo I took of him when he was working on corners the previous summer in Atlantic City. Talked to Roy, sharp as a tack. Saw James Toney. Who's not as eloquent as maybe a Roy Jones, but funny.
Pretty gruff
engaging.
when I met him.
Gruff, yeah, very gruff, but funny and engaging. Talked to him for a minute. Then you see, and I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but you see Riddick Buff, and we interviewed Riddick back 8 years or so ago.
You want to fight me?
That was one of the ones that we had a hard time. We would laugh because he would laugh. We didn't really know what he was saying.
I was like, when's your next fight? Who are you gonna fight next? He goes, I want to fight you.
Yeah. But I'll tell you the one that really, I'm not gonna say guard, but it definitely upset me a little bit was when I got in the line to meet Thomas Hearns. And Tommy Hearns was in an area next to Ray Leonard. They were, obviously shared a great rivalry during their career. And this made me sad because the Ray Leonard line, I couldn't get in. It was too long. I didn't have enough time. The Tommy Hearns line, there was maybe one other person in front of me, and I went up there, and I was, paying my $20. The woman said to me, and you could tell, she obviously knew that, we're fans, and we know who he is. And she just looked at me, she goes, listen, he's a little slower. And I'm like, wow. Because you remember the menacing Tommy Hearns from back in the 80s, and, to see him soft-spoken, slurring a little bit was kind of hard.
Yeah. Yep. One of the downsides. The sweet science. Especially for those older guys.
Hey, Rich,
they really didn't know much about
Rich,
defense.
I only did it. I only did it for so long in my career. And I will tell you there are some days I feel the effects of it. I'm not going to bullshit you. And hey, I play football as well, so I'm not going to get at least a bell rung or two there. And I'm not going to say that there weren't other things that I did. I'm not sure I had a concussion in a street fight when I was maybe 13. But there are days where my short term is no term. Hey, you just call me the Rain Man of boxing because I'll remember shit from, I'll remember fights that happened before I was born and give you details.
Yeah.
But I might not be able to say what I had for breakfast this morning. And, there are certain things like I went to a grocery store 3 times the other year during the summer. It was 4th of July weekend. I knew the one manager. He goes, Tony, why don't you write down a list? I said I did. I forgot that as well. Who makes fun of it, And I said I poke fun at myself, but I also know that there are days where I feel it more than others.
Yeah. Well. There was some stuff I was taking.
When they talked about last week, when they were talking about
I took some stuff for like a sample program called the site called IntelliFluence, and I did a little review on it. And it's like I had to do this for like a job, but it did really work for me. I just didn't need it as much. I didn't buy it. I didn't go out and buy it because it was that great. But I definitely noticed some sharper. Mind and focus stuff going on when I was on it. So I'll send you that link one of these.
Like I said, I'll make light of it sometimes. And last week when they were talking on the one fight card, and they mentioned, and I forget who they were talking about. But they were talking about one of the fighters had trained with a couple about few fighters, and I think he might have sparred with. I know he sparred with Hank Lundy, and I think he sparred with Danny Garcia. Maybe they said I think he was in there with like Errol Spence, whatever. They said, he survived some of them Philadelphia gym wars, and I'm like, yeah, I know all about them. So yeah, I may have only had so many fights in my career, but I fought a lot of those gym wars as well. Where some days, I had gym sessions where I forgot portions of it.
Right.
I had, definitely get the bell rung a few times, but some people absorb it better as well. A guy like Roy Jones has been knocked out like 8 times. He's still sharp as tack. Now, one day he might have a tremendous drop off, but hopefully, that won't be for a long time.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to a lighter subject. Although if you were in the ring for this one, it probably didn't seem so light to you. You ever get caught looking at your phone during a fight, Tony?
You know what? As a fan, yes.
Okay.
As a fan, you'd be out there and you swipe down at your phone. Yeah. As a judge, no, because you didn't have cell phones when I did some judging. But I know exactly where you're going.
The British Boxing Board of Control has launched an investigation on English ringside boxing judge Terry O'Connor, who is alleged to have looked away from the fight he was judging on Saturday to check his phone. Well, they don't know that yet. The investigation is into it, but Barry Hearn actually tweeted a picture. No, Eddie Hearn tweeted a picture of the incident and wrote, "If that's a phone, and I presume it is, then the BBBFC should immediately remove him." O'Connor was also a top referee who has officiated multiple world title fights. Scored the fight to Ritson, who won a split decision over Mexican Vasquez in Peterborough. We just talked about that fight. Mr. O'Connor will appear before the stewards of the BBBFC following his appointment to the boxing tournament at the East of England Showground Arena, the organization said in a statement. I don't see how that doesn't get called a no contest now that this is world news. That's horrible. Pay attention. Anyway. Here's one from Maine, right where I trained for my attempt to do my first MMA fight before I got the shingles. A guy named Isaac Terrian was transported to the Oxford County Jail up there after he was accused of repeatedly assaulting his girlfriend and police officers in the town of Rumford. Now, I'm looking at this guy's pictures. He does not look like a guy I actually trained with up there. But he's 21 years old, and he's been charged with, actually, the incidents were in Rumford, which was right in the town that I trained. That was the town. But, he's an MMA fighter. I just don't know where he trained. Maybe he came in a long time after I was there. But, Monday morning, police said the victim was able to use a phone to get a text message out for help. When police attempted to arrest Therian, they said he tried to escape from custody. When that was unsuccessful, they said he turned his aggression towards the arresting officers. Rumford police said one officer sustained a broken nose and black eye, and another officer sustained rib injuries before they were able to subdue Therian. Charged with aggravated domestic violence, assault, criminal restraint, refusing to submit to arrest, assault on a police officer, attempted escape, and violation of conditions of release. So yeah, he'll be in there for a while. Anyway. Where it says he was an MMA fighter or what gym or anything. Terrian is a competitive mixed martial arts fighter. That's all it says. So yeah. Sounds like he's got a job with the CIA when he gets out. Alright. Here's a story I was meaning to talk about last week, but we didn't get a chance to. Your buddy, Philly's Brittany Bam Rogers, has a big story that's going around from the Philadelphia Inquirer.
I saw that. I read.
She's all business when it comes to boxing. Got a big picture of her and talks about her initials being BAM. Pretty good write-up. So anyway, check that out. fusion.inquirer.com/sports/ bunch of other stuff. But Bam Rogers boxing promotion.
I went to the first show she promoted almost 10 years ago down at the National Guard Armory in Philly. In fact, I think I covered it. And on that card was Julian J. Rock Williams was like 5-0 or 7-0, climbing up the ladder. And I brought a kid that I had been training at the time, 17-year-old kid. I brought him and his dad to the fight. They'd never been to a live fight before. And, he's really watching it and he's, really getting into it. He's been training with me all summer at the time. And so we get out there and he's watching it. And earlier that summer, I told him to watch the fight on ESPN because Hank Lundy was fighting. I'm like, hey, he's from my old gym and blah, blah, blah. And that night he texted me and goes, oh my God, was he the guy that knocked that guy out with that counter shot you taught me? I'm like, yeah. The one counter roll, the shoulder roll counter with I think he was fighting southpaw, left hand. I'm like, yeah, the exact move I taught the guy. Hank Lundy does on TV, knocks the guy out. And, he's meeting guys that I trained with, guys that I sparred with. This kid's having a blast. That was Brittany Rogers' first show. And, I went over there to talk to her. You could see, like, when it was over, like, the weight of the world was off her shoulders. Because, like, that night, your first show, this is a big deal. And she did a fantastic job. And she's working with the Joe Hands, the Russell Peltzes. She's really with the big names of the sport. And every time I've ever talked to her, every time I've ever met her, just can't meet a nicer human being. You really can't. And an asset to the boxing world.
Yeah. Well, we don't talk about wrestling a lot. And we definitely don't talk about college wrestling at all, usually. But our boy Donald Trump has been doing a lot of unconventional things. And one of the things he's going to do is give the Presidential Medal of Freedom to a guy named Dan Gable. And if you were ever a high school wrestler, they probably showed you a tape at one point of Dan Gable, because he had the incredible record of 181-1 as a college wrestler. Between his prep and collegiate career. 181-1, losing only one time in the 1970 NCAA finals. And my wrestling coach showed us tapes on this guy, and that's all they could talk about. Dan Gable. It was that and Vision Quest. That's what you had to watch, something on Dan Gable and Vision Quest. All wrestling.
Oh my God, I remember Vision Quest. I was watching clips of that last week.
Yeah, and there's a lot of weight cutting stuff, so it's good for boxers too. Anyway, Gable also, after his career, led the Iowa wrestling program to 21 consecutive Big Ten titles, 15 NCAA team championships between 76 and 97. During his tenure, he coached 152 All-Americans, 46 national champs, and 12 Olympians who combined to win 8 Olympic medals. He also won gold at the 1972 Olympics, winning 6 matches at 150 pounds. And also, probably a feat that has not been repeated, he didn't allow a single point the whole Olympics against him. That's hard to do in wrestling. But anyway, he was notified of the award in a letter. The Register obtained a copy of the letter dated October 13th, which said Gable would be the first athlete and coach from the sport of wrestling to receive this distinguished honor. 71 years old, and he's just obviously thrilled. Had a rally for him Wednesday in Des Moines. So anyway, obviously also in the Wrestling Hall of Fame and the United States Olympic Hall of Fame. Spent the greater part of the last decade helping build wrestling's profile in the United States, and played an integral role in saving the sport after it was put on the Olympic chopping block in 2013. Other athletes who got the Presidential Medal of Freedom: Good old Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, Babe Ruth, Pat Summitt, John Wooden, and several others. 17th guy or person to get it during the Trump presidency. Did he pardon Jack Johnson yet? I bet you he'll do that.
I thought he did.
If he hasn't, he'll probably do that before he ends his presidency, too. Anyway. Manny Pacquiao.
Before the election.
Yeah, before the election. Who knows? Manny Pacquiao making the news again. Not for the Conor McGregor fight, but another business venture. I don't know if it's going to be publicly traded or if you can invest in this thing, but anything Manny Pacquiao puts his name behind is probably going to be pretty good. His company is called Pac Technologies, aiming to launch something called Pac Pay later this year to make faster and safer cross-border transactions. It seems like one of those guys that Fertitas used to deal with, the money kiosk guys, Global Cash Access, they called themselves. Talk about some shady operations. Hope Pacquiao doesn't let this become, something people siphon off of. But anyway, it's first going to be rolled out across his native Philippines and then Singapore, with plans to expand across Asia. So you're not going to be able to get Pac Pay in the USA quite yet, but maybe in the future. Now, as senator, the champion boxer has been tipped as a future president of the Philippines. So he says, people are always curious to find out what I am getting into. And because of my latest involvement with this financial technology venture, a lot of my fellow athletes, global influencers, and other entrepreneurs have expressed their interest and potential involvement in the platform. See, everybody wants to get involved. So anyway, payment amounts for influencers are based on many factors, such as the number of followers they have and the number of engagements their posts get. PacPay wants to make the payments between influencers, brands, and fans as seamless as possible. So this would be like one of my sites that I deal with. I was just talking about IntelliFluence, which basically just introduces you to the people that will pay you as an influencer to do certain reviews and postings. So it's definitely a burgeoning industry, especially with the pandemic, Everybody is turning to the internet, so it's a smart play right there.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on that. PacPay, Pac Technologies, PacPay. And guess who he teamed up with? Teamed up with Jack Ma earlier this year to tackle the spread of COVID-19 in the Philippines. So that's quite the billionaire friend to have in your pocket. And he also worked with his foundation, through Jack Ma's foundation, together to pledge 50,000 test kits to help fight the pandemic. So yeah, Future Billionaires of America Club. Welcome Manny Pacquiao. He's probably already a millionaire. I mean, he's got to be multi-millionaire. But I don't think he's a billionaire yet, but he's going to be. He keeps on that track. Anyway, here's a good one. Speaking of Donald Trump, we mentioned earlier. Art Davie, who created the UFC. It's all coming together now, because I never heard this before now. But Art Davie had to save one of the events in the early days. They didn't want to host it anywhere else, so Trump agreed to host it. Now, Art Davie was involved in the very beginning stages of the UFC. There's been that little documentary about the Octagon, featuring everybody that claimed stake to creating and naming the Octagon. And he's in as one of them, talking about how it was conceived. So he's been there from day one. And he used to be actually a roommate with Donald Trump at military school. Yeah, that's the first time I've heard this.
Okay.
So I'm guaranteeing that's where they got the idea to go to him and ask him to host an event at one of his casinos, his hotel casino buildings back in the day, when it was still a very questionable sport and not very regulated. And Trump agreed, so he sort of is, MMA's hero and Dana White loves him, and he loves Dana White, and he's big with the fighters. He's even got Fighters Against Socialism now. It's like a big group that goes around with him of fighters. That's great stuff. But anyway, so of course, Davey being involved in the early stages of the UFC, it was very tough to sell. Not a lot of people were interested, and it got to the point where they had to actually sell the whole thing for $2 million to the Fertittas. And yeah, you had to know people back then to get it to go anywhere, and he knew somebody big, Donald Trump. So
can't find anybody bigger right now.
Yeah. It was at New York Military Academy, the go-to place for the greatest generation to send their kids to straighten up. This was back in the day when you used to hear it on even the 80s shows. You know, the parents would say, I'll send you to military school. Not necessarily to get you to go into the military, but to straighten you out. They stopped pretty much doing that nowadays. Nowadays, it's pretty much, if you're not intending to go to the military, you don't go to a military school. It's very rare. Even though I didn't go in the military, it just kind of happened to shake out that way because my credits, I couldn't do the ROTC program. Anyway, it is what it is. So they were basically known for turning out not only leaders, but big society people. Stephen Sondheim, Francis Ford Coppola, also President Trump. So Davey saw Trump firsthand as his roommate, and his book website talks about the whole escapade. Trump has spoken extensively about his career at military school. His father was a successful businessman who was hoping to get some discipline into his heirs. Whether this worked with Trump is in the eye of the beholder. This is the article I'm reading. But his military school shaped him into who he became. And Trump also developed a love for sports there, too. But he was also reportedly a troublemaker, which is interesting because, being a military school alumni myself, I can tell you, 9.9 times out of 10, I should say, the big-time Medal of Honor winners, the heroes, the most well-known alumni are the troublemakers. Especially while they were at school. Maybe not so much in the military, but while they were at school, they were always the troublemakers. In case in point, the biggest troublemaker of all. You're going to love this one. Okay, this was a true story according to the people at Virginia Military Institute. I never verified it or went to the library to find out if it was really true, but this is like legend that's passed down through the generations of VMI cadets. It is well known that General Patton went to Virginia Military Institute before he went to West Point. His whole family had gone through VMI. They wanted him to do the same thing. But General Patton was a troublemaker. Go figure. So he decided one day he was going to get the commandant's horse and bring it up to the barracks and march it around, and everybody would laugh and have fun and ride it around the barracks. And the barracks are like prison tiers. If you've ever seen a movie with prison tiers, they're just all around an inside pit, and it's all concrete. The stairs are concrete and metal and railings. And so little did Patton know, I guess he wasn't in the cavalry at the school, but he decided as a prank he was not only going to steal the commandant's horse, he was going to walk it up the steps to the second or third floor of the barracks and parade it around. So after he had his fun with it, they knew they had to get it back. So they tried to get it to go down the steps, and the damn thing did not want to go down the steps. It was fine going up the steps, but going down the steps is a completely different dynamic for a horse. Especially those steps. Anyway, so they start trying to chase him around, and boom. He goes and makes a break for it. Runs and jumps over the railing into the courtyard below, breaks his neck, and dies. So, of course, Patton gets implicated in killing the horse, and, it's supposed to be a prank, but nobody understands that it's just a prank. So they toss him out, and just because his family is who they are, big time, aristocratic family in Virginia, a lot of pull, they got him into West Point anyway, even after that happened. So he goes to West Point and becomes a famous general. But so that was his start, and not too many people know that story. I think you kind of have to go to VMI to know about it or know somebody who went there. Because it's not in the history books. It's one of those ones like up at Norwich, they have a story about this great war admiral. And I didn't even know this until recently, like the last 2 years I found this out. But this guy, Admiral Dewey, I knew he had been thrown out of Norwich. I knew that for a fact. Most people said it was for his drunkenness. And he did some pranks. We heard about one of the pranks he did where he brought a cannon into one of the barracks, pointed it out the window, and blew it off and broke all the windows in the barracks across from it. Just crazy, stupid stuff that he did. And so I thought it was stuff like that that got him thrown out. And then later on, he went to Annapolis and became a war hero. And famously, he came back to Norwich, and they did like a Norwich big event for him. And he got off the train at the stop, gave a 5-minute speech, got back on and left. He didn't even want to go walk the campus or nothing. But anyway, the main story is Dewey now has been rumored to have also been running a brothel while he was at the school. And the kicker is this kid was a kid at the time he went to Norwich. This was the time when kids went to college at 14, 15 years old. So he was literally a kid when he's now being accused of having been running a brothel at the school. Oh, so talk about troublemakers. Yeah. They sometimes turn out to be the biggest heroes. Unbelievable, but true. So yeah, Trump was a troublemaker who didn't take things seriously, according to this article. But some people see that at least his time at the school was contributive to his conservative future as a politician. But Davey just spoke a little bit about the inklings of the future president he experienced at the school. And they went their separate ways, but their fighting streaks might be explained by their time together. Anyway, yeah, I guess that's worth a read to find out the more intricate details there, but must be some interesting stuff in that book. And crazy guy, very interesting guy. I'll send you the link on the whole story. There's a crazy one from wrestling. I just saw this kind of come across my Google alerts today. This is a wrestler. Let's see. Salazar is his name. He had an incident in the wrestling ring, just 26 years old. He had a brain aneurysm following a collapse in the ring.
Oh.
Died. 26 years old.
Oh, shit.
Mexican wrestler. Just a freak accident. Kind of crazy. I'll get to the story in a minute. Kind of reminds me of something I didn't witness firsthand, but I was actually coming back from a wrestling meet the night it happened at my school. There was a kid named Matt Messing, and it probably was national news at the time. I don't remember quite how far it got, but it was definitely, up at the top of the local news. Because it was an arch rival situation. It was Quincy High versus North Quincy High. He was a hockey player. And this kid got checked by another kid who I went to school with at another middle school before I went to Quincy High School. And he was at North Quincy High School. So this kid from North Quincy High hit this kid, Matt Messing, and the kid just died. He had like a heart issue, and his heart stopped right there on the ice, and they got him to the hospital, but not in time, and he died. Freak accident. Nobody figured out how it happened. There was only one other incident of anything like it happening, and it was like when a kid got hit by the puck right in the heart area, and he had like an incident, but he didn't die. So this was just a crazy situation. The father was actually part of the Boston Herald. He had like a big position with the Boston Herald, so there was just a lot of coverage on it, and It's like a big soap opera drama behind the scenes because the kid that laid the hit on the guy that killed him was real torn up about it and disappeared for a little while. And the guy's father that lost a son forgave him publicly. And, it was a big issue. But it's very sad when that kind of thing happens. The only thing you can say, which I said I did a little memorial for his yearbook page, the only thing you can say is he died doing what he loved. And it's, in a way, it's the greatest thing you can hope for. Just not that early.
Yeah. And I talk about this, all the time. And probably the scariest moment I've ever had as a fight fan was in 1997. And I was at Lock Haven University, and I was at Lock Haven University, and we were having the afternoon card. We had the main card in the evening, which I was on, and we were having the afternoon card, which was our sub-novice and our novice competitors. And I was team president that year, and the coach and I decided for the evening show we were going to have some of the university cheerleaders work as ring card girls. They were going to be in their cheerleader outfits, and I had made them signs round 2, round 3, because obviously they were on 3-round fights. So as we're getting ready for the afternoon card, the coach's daughter, Dr. Cox's daughter, Debbie, who I'm still friends with, came up to me. She goes, listen, for the afternoon fights, could some of Doc's granddaughters be ring card girls? I said, of course. I said, I'll help them. I'll get them in the ring and show them what to do and all that. And the kids were cute as could be, had little Lock Haven boxing shirts on. And one of the last fights of the afternoon card was a kid from Penn State named Mike Brown, who was a decent fighter, a kid out of Philly. And he was fighting a kid from Shippensburg, whose name I don't even remember. And the kid from Shippensburg had fought the previous week, and he got stopped in the second round. But, I don't think he ever hit the canvas. But, he was overwhelmed, and they stopped the fight. So now he's fighting this guy, Mike Brown, and Brown's clearly winning the fight. Nothing crazy is going on. He's not pummeling him. And Brown lands a very innocent punch in the third round, and this other kid drops like a sack of potatoes. Hits the ground, and you can hear a pin drop because he is not moving. And then he starts convulsing. And you figure like, oh shit, what's going on here? So the first thing I did was these little 7, 8, 9-year-old kids are sitting in the front row, and I said, girls, go to the concession stand and get me a soda. I'll meet you in the back and get it. Don't bring it to me. Just get me a soda, and I'll meet you back there. I just wanted to get them away from the ring. And we're watching this guy, and he is having an epileptic fit because when he signed up for the boxing team that year, he did not disclose that he had epilepsy. So now he's having an epileptic fit in the middle of the ring, and he was starting to swallow his tongue. Now, we had 2 ringside physicians there, Dr. Cox's son, Larry, who's a physician, and his son was the one that played in the NFL, and Dr. Keith Adams, who was still one of Lock Haven's internal medicine town physicians. He might have just retired. They're both in the ring, and now they're seeing this kid who's like locked jaw and is swallowing his tongue. He's got a death grip on their hands, and they're like, what are we going to do? We're going to actually break his teeth to get his tongue to come out so he doesn't choke to death. And by the grace of God, the University of Kentucky was there with some of their boxers. And the coach at the time was a guy named Dr. George Ginter, who was a University of Kentucky, which is the major medical school, anesthesiologist. And Dr. Ginter got in the ring, and he almost did like a nerve hold, like something you'd seen like in a professional wrestling ring, where he got under his mandibles, and he like popped, right under there, and the guy's jaw unhinged, and his tongue popped out. Saved him, right? They wheeled him out. I actually held the ropes open while they were wheeling him out, onto the gurney. And I'm like, shit, like, in 4 hours now, I got to fight in this very same ring. The very same ring I'm watching this kid nearly die from. And I got to fight one of his teammates. So we were all kind of messed up that night. Last year, a year and a half ago now, obviously I keep wanting to say last year, but I keep forgetting, I haven't gone to any fights in a year because of the COVID. We were down in Philadelphia, packed card, and kid Christian Carter was fighting. And I know Christian, Italian kid out of South Philly, good prospect at 118 pounds. I think he was like 17-0 with 11 knockouts going in. And standing room only, jumping, place, you could barely stand in there. Everybody's having a great time. And Christian was fighting the southpaw, and the guy had fought for a world title, but he was more of a journeyman. But this is the next step you have to take as a prospect. You've been beating the guys you're supposed to beat. Now you got to step up and fight a guy that's durable, goes rounds, and has fought at the highest level of competition for a world title. And in the first round, they're going back and forth. He's southpaw, Christian's orthodox, and they're both parrying each other's lead hands, and Christian's trying to land his right hand. And so the second round, Christian is starting to find his right hand, and he landed 2 or 3 in a row. And I said to my dad, "Oh, Christian's finding a home for his right hand." Shortly after that, he threw a wide looping right hand to the body, and he missed. And this guy, I forget his name, took a step back, and he countered with just a short, like it was like almost like a left hook, but from a southpaw stance. It was really awkward, and it got right through Christian's gloves, and just caught him on the chin, and he went down stiff as a board. And as soon as he went down, the referee stopped the fight, and he called the doctors in. And this is a local kid. It's the main event. His friends and family are there. The place is dead silent. I mean, dead silent. And Christian's not moving. And we're like, oh, my God. 10 minutes he's on the ground. And we're all standing there. Nobody wanted to leave because we wanted to, see him exit the ring, preferably standing. He's not. We're like, oh, my God. And they put him out on the backboard, and they wheel him under the ropes. And as they're wheeling the stretcher out, they're wheeling him into an ambulance, back towards where the locker room is. And we're now the place is emptying. People are leaving. Over. And as I'm walking out, the referee was walking kind of past me. And I heard him say, "No, he's going to be okay. He's conscious. They're just being precautious because of the way his neck contorted and the way his head hit." So we went home that night, and Joey I, who we had on the show a few months ago, I forget if he texted me or if he might have Facebook messaged me at like 1 in the morning saying, "Yo, Tone," because I had messaged him like, "Yo, Joey, let me know when you hear something." He goes, "Yo, Tone, he's out of the hospital. He's okay. They were just being precautious. Grade 3 concussion. He's pretty upset right now, but he's okay," which is good. So a week later, I'm at Lock Haven for the annual show, and I was talking to Bill Rabel, who used to be the Penn State coach, and I was telling him about the fight. And I said, "Bill," I said, "I swear to God, it was the second scaredest I've ever been at a live boxing match." And Bill looked me dead in the eyes. He goes, "Mike Brown, 1997, right?" I'm like, "Goddamn right, bro. You're goddamn right."
Yeah. Well, we got one big fight card this weekend as far as boxing goes. And we got the big UFC card to talk about. What I'll probably do, since we have a little bit of time before we usually host and post. I'm a poet and didn't know it. Since we usually don't post the show until Friday or late Thursday night, I'll try to get a quick call with Tom in tomorrow, and we'll kind of just snip it on to the end of the show. But before that, we got to talk about this big 3-fight lineup on Showtime. Now, where did it go? I just had it right in front of me. On Saturday, we got Sergey Lipinets, who is 16-1. Got a replacement opponent that's actually probably a little bit more technical and sharp than the other opponent he had. I'm not sure who he was supposed to fight, but I did read today that he said that this Castillo Clayton that he's fighting now, who's 18-0, is not as aggressive and active, but he is more technical and sharp. So it's going to be one of those adjustment periods here for the training. But they changed opponents on him. It's still for the interim International Boxing Federation World Welterweight title. It's a real long name, like Abdurakhmanov or something, some crazy crap like that. And the guy had pulled out of fights before. I know, I did read that. Anyway, co-main event is Xavier Martinez, 15-0 at super featherweight, fighting Claudio Marrero, who is 24-4, and 3 of those 4 losses have come in his last 6 fights. And then we got the fight rounding off the card, Malik Hawkins at super lightweight, 18-0 as well, fighting Subriel Matias, who is 15-1. I believe the only one of these guys I've even seen fight is Sergey, and just a couple times. Don't know a lot about him. It is what it is. Nothing else too exciting going on this weekend. We got some big female fight. The world female featherweight title, the WBF, on the line as well. Again in Germany, Elena Thyssen, 23-2, fighting Pasa Malajic, who is 15-6. And get a load of this undefeated fighter in the co-main event. Heavyweight Hussein Muhammad, 15-0, fighting Dzmal Bozjanjak. Definitely butchering that. He's 4-2. 15-0 against 4-2, so I guess that's kind of our mismatch of the week. And I think that's about it for the boxing schedules. So we'll have a chit-chat with Tom, and we'll snip that on the end, and that's about it, unless you got anything else to add, Tony?
I don't. Thank you for doing this for me. That way I can, hang out with my crew tomorrow night. Hopefully we can all schedule our plans. We do. If we don't, we don't. But,
all right.
I'll watch the game. I'll curse, I'll yell. I hope you liked my recap of, trying to do a shot for every time I say, who the hell is this guy? I might be dead by the half.
Yeah, it's one of those years. In the Cowboys game, what I made the mistake with was I had one of the guys that would have won me some better money originally in the lineup. But what I usually do is I get nervous at my picks and I'll look up, what are the picks, see what other people say to pick. And there's usually 3 or 4 articles you can read, and they'll give you the whole lineup of what they suggest. And you're only usually looking for one guy because you know the other guys. You always need the one guy that's least expected to perform, who's going to perform and launch you through the stratosphere because nobody else picked him. So that's the one guy you're always looking for. And they said it was going to be number 11 for the Cowboys, who's like the 4th receiver. So number 11 starts getting in the game, and they are throwing to him every down, pretty much. He's the only one making catches. And then he gets booted in the stomach or kneed in the stomach or something, and he's out for half of the second half, and then finally comes back in at the end of the game. There's no hope for him to score any points, but I was just I should have just kept my original guy in there, and I never would have had him.
Well, you know what? I run that weekly league that I've been doing for 20 years now, and every Thursday, I manually enter everybody picks. We have 60 people in the league, so it's every week pays out $240 because $5 a week, and everybody pays the whole season up front. And what it does is so $4 from each person goes to the weekly payout, and $1 from each person goes to the cumulative year-end payout. And so this week I had 6 people going into Monday night. One of them had Buffalo; he gets eliminated. So now it goes down to 5 people. 3 of them have Arizona, 2 of them have Dallas. Once Dallas loses, those 2 get eliminated. So now the 3 people that are done, one buddy, he had total 45 points. The other guys had 49 points. So I'm okay, if it's 40-something or less, Johnny wins. If it's 40 whatever or more, these other 2 guys split the jackpot. So my friend Johnny's winning. With 3 minutes to go, it's 31-3. So I'm he's only got 3 minutes. He should be safe. Dallas drives all the way down the field, gets 2 pass interference calls, and scores basically a meaningless touchdown. So I'm like, all right, John, he's still winning, you know. He just got to hold on to 2 more minutes. Hopefully Arizona can ice the clock. Arizona's running the clock. The guy breaks a 70-yard touchdown run with like under a minute to go.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure my friend Johnny's young is saying, slide, you selfish son of a bitch.
That was the guy I should have picked. I should have picked that guy.
Yeah, Kenyon Drake.
Yeah. I had him, and then I changed it. And I had his backup on another team, but not him. But actually, this one with the Phillies, the Philadelphia Eagles there, and was it the Rams? No, the Giants. This one tomorrow night. I've never had an easier time putting a lineup together as far as price-wise. So many people are injured, and the prices are all geared towards the people that are actually doing well at the lower tier, you know. All the people that are on injured reserve have the high prices still, even though they're on injured reserve. It's ridiculous. So both of my lineups, I have $5,000 left to spend. I've never had that. Never. The only way I could use up all my money is if I use both quarterbacks on my freaking lineup. But I don't think that Daniel Jones is going to do shit. I don't think he's going to have a good day at all. I hope your Philadelphia defense proves me right.
I hope so too.
Yeah. They're due for a good one. Oh, yeah. Boston Scott. I got him. I got Fulgham. I got Carson. And I'm giving the nod to 2 Giants. 2 different sets of Giants. Evan Ingram. And what's the other guy? Darius Slayton, maybe. The field goal kicker. And they're running back. They got that Devontae Freeman now to replace Barkley. He's pretty damn good if he gets going. But
yeah.
I see him doing better than the quarterback. I don't see any scenario in which the quarterback does better than him. But sometimes, that's what.
Well, I'm not sold on Daniel Jones, and I'm not sold on him in game. That Saquon Barkley was providing them. I see him with a lot of turnovers, but then again, the Eagles' defense has not been, the most dominating unit out there.
Right. All right. Till next week. Hopefully, I'll be a millionaire by then. We'll see.
Hopefully.
Smiling Sam Alvey. He's going to pull off a miracle for me. I'm going to call him up.
That's right.
And tell him he's got to win for me.
All right. Well,
don't let them embarrass him.
I'll talk to you next week. Back on our normal schedule.
Alrighty then. Adios for
Later.
now. We'll talk to Tom later.